The Walters Art Museum, located in Mount Vernon, Belvedere, Baltimore, Maryland, is a public art museum founded and opened in 1934, with collections created during the mid-19th century. The museum's collection was amassed substantially by major American art and sculpture collectors, a father and son, William Thompson Walters, who began serious collecting when he moved to Paris as a nominal Southern Confederate sympathizer at the outbreak of the American Civil War in 1861, and Henry Walters, who refined the collection and made arrangements for the construction of a later landmark building to rehouse it. After allowing the Baltimore public to occasionally view his father's and his growing added collections at his West Mount Vernon Place townhouse mansion during the late 1800s, he arranged for an elaborate stone palazzo-styled structure built for that purpose in 1905 to 1909, which he then occasionally opened its doors for citizens to tour. The rapidly growing collections, located across the back alley, a block south of the Walters Mansion on West Monument Street, Mount Vernon Place, on the northwest corner of North Charles Street at West Center Street. The mansion and gallery were also just south and west of the landmark Washington Monument in the Tony Mount Vernon Belvedere neighborhood, just north of the downtown business district of northeast of Cathedral Hill. Upon his 1931 death, Henry Walters bequeathed the entire collection of then more than 22,000 works, the original Charles Street Gallery building, and his adjacent townhouse mansion just across the alley to the north on West Mount Vernon Place to the city of Baltimore. For the benefit of the public, the collection, first known for 70 years as the Walters Art Gallery, includes masterworks of ancient Egypt, Greek sculpture and Roman sarcophagi, medieval ivories, illuminated manuscripts, Renaissance bronzes, Old Master European and 19th-century paintings, Chinese ceramics and bronzes, Art Deco jewelry, and ancient Near East, Mesopotamian, or ancient Middle East items. In 2000, the Walters Art Gallery changed its longtime title to the Walters Art Museum to reflect its image as a large public institution and eliminate confusion among some of the increasing out-of-state visitors that the gallery was a private institution or a place to auction and purchase art. The following year, the Walters reopened its largest original main building of 1909 facing Charles Street after a dramatic 3-year physical renovation and replacement of internal utilities and infrastructure. The Walters Art Museum is where the Archimedes palimpsest is on loan from a private collector for conservation and spectral imaging studies. Starting on October 1, 2006. The museum began having free admission year-round as a result of substantial grants given by Baltimore City and the surrounding suburban Baltimore County arts agencies and authorities. In 2012, the Walters released nearly 20,000 of its own images of its collections on a Creative Commons license, and collaborated in their upload to the World Wide Web and the Internet on Wikimedia Commons. This was one of the largest and most comprehensive such releases made by any museum. Permanent collection. Ancient art. The Walters collection of ancient art includes examples from Egypt, Nubia, Greece, Rome, Etruria and the Near East. Highlights include 2 monumental 3,000-pound statues of the Egyptian lion-headed goddess Sekhmet, the Walters Mummy, alabaster reliefs from the Palace of Ashurnasirpal II, Greek gold jewelry, including the Greek bracelets from Olbia on the shores of the Black Sea, the Praxitelian satyr, a large assemblage of Roman portrait heads, a Roman bronze banquet couch, and marble sarcophagi from the tombs of the prominent Licinian and Calpurnian families. Sumerian male worshipper, c. 2300 BC. Paddy's statue illustrates Canaan, ancient Egypt trade, c. 1700 BC. Portrait bust of Livia, wife of Emperor Caesar Augustus, c. 35 BC. Alphaeum mummy portrait, Roman Egypt, AD 175. The Rubens vase, an agate hardstone carving of c. AD 400. Roman funeral stela with Latin inscription referring to Mithra. Art of the Ancient Americas. In 1911, Henry Walters purchased almost 100 gold artifacts from the Chiriquí region of western Panama in Central America, creating a core collection of ancient American native art. Through subsequent gifts of art and loans, the museum has added works, mostly in pottery and stone, from Mexico, Central America and South America, including pieces from the Mesoamerican Olmec, Aztec, and Maya cultures, as well as the Moche and Inca peoples of South America. Whistle in the form of a dancing figure from Colima, Mexico. Pottery. 300 BC. AD 200. Maya head in stucco, AD 550 to 850. Mixteca Puebla-style labret, obsidian. Asian art. Highlights of the Asian art collection assembled earlier by Baltimorean father and son collectors William T. and Henry Walters include Japanese arms and armor, and Chinese and Japanese porcelains, lacquers, and metalwork. Among the museum's outstanding works of Asian art is a late 12th or early 13th century Cambodian bronze of the eight-armed Avalokiteshvara, a Tianj dynasty earthenware camel, and an intricately painted Ming dynasty wine jar. The museum owns the oldest surviving Chinese wooden lacquer image of the Buddha. It is exhibited in a gallery dedicated solely to this work. The museum holds one of the largest and finest collections of Thai bronze, scrolls, and banner paintings in the world. Detail of Ming dynasty wood and lacquer guanine. 15th century Tibet, and ritual knife and chopper. 19th century Thai illustration of Esantaraja Takar, ch. 10. 18th century Chinese jar with dragon. Hashiguchi Go-Yo, woman in blue combing her hair, woodblock print, Japan, 1920. Islamic art. Islamic art in all media is represented at the Walters. Among the highlights are a 7th century carved and hammered silver bowl from Iran, a 13th century candlestick made of copper, silver, and gold from the Mamluk era in Egypt, 16th century mausoleum doors decorated with intricate wood carvings in a radiating star pattern, a 17th century silk sash from the Mughal Empire in India, and a 17th century Turkish tile with an image of the Masjid al-Haram, the center of Islam in Mecca. The Walters Museum owns an array of Islamic manuscripts. These include a 15th century Quran from northern India, executed at the height of the Timurid Empire, a 16th century copy of the Kamsa of Nizami, Kamsa, by Amir Khusraw, illustrated by a number of famous artists for the Emperor Akbar, and a Turkish calligraphy album by Sheikh Hamidullah al-Amassi, one of the greatest calligraphers of all time. Walters Art Museum. MSW 613 contains 5 Mughal miniatures from a very important Kamsa of Nizami, made for the Emperor Akbar. The rest are in London, Great Britain. Early Quran page in Kufic script, 9th century. Mamluk era in Egypt. Handle stick base, C1240, brass with silver, gold and copper inlays. The Death of Darius, Mughal miniature from Akbar's Kamsa of Nizami, 1595, MSW 613. Detail of an 18th century ceremonial jeweled Turkish rifle. Inside of Quran. Cover, 19th century, Sub-Saharan Africa. Medieval art. Henry Walters assembled a collection of art produced during the Middle Ages in all the major artistic media of the period. This forms the basis of the Walters Medieval Collection, for which the museum is best known internationally. Considered one of the best collections of medieval art in the United States, the museum's holdings include examples of metalwork, sculpture, stained glass, textiles, icons, and other paintings. The collection is especially renowned for its ivories, enamels, reliquaries, early Byzantine silver, post-Byzantine illuminated manuscripts, and the largest and finest collection of Ethiopian Christian art outside Ethiopia. The Walters medieval collection features unique objects such as the Byzantine agate Rubens vase that belonged to the painter Rubens and the earliest surviving image of the Virgin of Tenderness, an ivory carving produced in Egypt in the 6th or 7th century. Sculpted heads from the Royal Abbey of St. Denis are rare surviving examples of portal sculptures that have directly connected with the origins of Gothic art in 12th century France. An ivory casket covered with scenes of jousting knights is one of about a dozen such objects to survive in the world. Many of these works are on display in the museum's galleries. Works from the medieval collection are also frequently included in special touring exhibitions, such as Treasures of Heaven, an exhibition about relics and reliquaries that was on view at the Cleveland Museum of Art in the Walters Art Museum, and the British Museum in London in 2010-11. Works in the medieval collection are the subject of active research by the curatorial and conservation departments of the museum, and visiting researchers frequently make use of the museum's holdings. In-depth technical research carried on these objects is made available to the public through publications and exhibitions, as in the case of the Amandus Shrine, which was featured in a small special exhibition titled The Special Dead in 2008-9. Hunnish set of horse trappings, 4th century. French Gothic ivory box lid with a tournament, 14th century. Leaf from Barbavara Book of Hours, Milan c. 1440. 15th century Nottingham alabaster panel of the Resurrection of Christ. German chandelier, red deer antler and wood, 15th century. There are also late medieval devotional Italian paintings by these painters at the Walters. Tommaso da Modena, Pietro Lorenzetti, Andrea di Bartolo, Alberto Scioscia, Bartolomeo di Tommaso, Nado Ceccarelli, Master of St. Verdian, Niccolo di Segna, Orcagna, Olivuccio di Ciccarello, Master of Pinzano Triptych, and Giovanni del Biondo. Renaissance, Baroque, and 18th century art. The collection of European Renaissance and Baroque art features holdings of paintings, sculpture, furniture, ceramics, metal work, arms and armor. The highlights include Hugo van der Goes donor with St. John the Baptist, Heemskerk's panorama with the abduction of Helen amidst the wonders of the ancient world, Giambattista Pittini's Sacrifice of Polixena, the Madonna of the Candelabra, from the studio of Raphael, Verone's portrait of Countess Livia da Portofino and her daughter Portia, El Greco's St. Francis receiving the Stigmata, Bernini's Bozzetto of Risen Christ, Tiepolo's Scipio Africanus freeing Massiva, and The Ideal City, attributed to Fra Carnevale. The Ideal City, attributed to Fra Carnevale. Madonna of the Candelabra, by Raphael. Leaf from Book of Hours, French Renaissance, 1524. The Battle of Pavia, engraved on rock crystal for a Medici cardinal by Giovanni Bernardi, 1530s. Giovanni Battista Tiepolo, Scipio Africanus freeing Massiva, 1720. The Sacrifice of Polixena, Giambattista Pittini. Pompeo Bettoni, portrait of Cardinal Prospero Colonna di Chiara, 1750. 19th century art. William and Henry Walters collected works by late 19th century French academic masters and impressionists. Highlights of the collection include Odalisque with Slave by Ingres, Claude Monet's Springtime, Alfred Sisley's panoramic view of the Seine Valley, and Edouard Manet's realist masterpiece, The Café Concert. Henry Walters was particularly interested in the courtly arts of 18th century France. The museum's collection of Chevreuse porcelain includes a number of pieces that were made for members of the Royal Bourbon Court at Versailles Palace, outside of Paris. portrait miniatures and the examples of goldsmiths' works, especially snuff boxes and watches, are displayed in the treasury, along with some exceptional 19th and early 20th century works. Among them are examples of Art Nouveau-style jewelry by René Lalique, jeweled objects by the House of Fabre, including 2 Russian imperial Easter eggs, and precious jewels by Tiffany & Co. of New York City. The Walters collection presents an overview of 19th-century European art, particularly art from France. From the first half of the century come major paintings by Ingres, Géricault, and Delacroix. William Walters stayed in Paris with his family during the Civil War, because of his notorious Southern leanings, and he soon developed a keen interest in contemporary European painting. He either commissioned directly from the artists or purchased at auctions such major works by the Barbizon masters, including Jean-François Millet and Henri Rousseau, the academic masters Jean-Élie Écoute, Owen Garoma and Laurence Alma-Tadema, and even the modernists Manet, and Sisley, the Italian Antonio Rota. Raby Castle, the seat of the Earl of Darlington, by Joseph Mallard. William Turner. The Catskills, by Asher Brown Durand. News from Afar, by Alfred Stevens. Springtime, by Claude Monet. At the Café, by Edouard Manet. The Terrace at Saint-Germain, Spring, by Alfred Sisley. Drawings in the Walters Art Museum. Confessional, Toledo, by Félicien Rops, 1889. Courtier Standing by a Column, by Adolphe René Lefebvre, California, 1860. Street Scene with Gothic Building, by Theodore Henry Manson, 1845. Walters Museum Buildings. Charles Street, Old Main Building. Henry Walters' original gallery was designed by architect William Adams Delano and erected between 1904 and 1909. Facing South Washington Place and attached by an overhead bridge passageway across the back alley from his adjacent townhouse mansion to the north, on West Mount Vernon Place. Its exterior was inspired by the Renaissance Revival-style Hotel Portels in Paris, and its interior was modeled after the 17th-century Collegio dei Gesuiti, built by the Balbir family for the Jesuits in Genoa. The arts of the Renaissance and Baroque periods, French decorative arts of the 18th and 19th centuries, and manuscripts and rare books are now exhibited in this palazzo-style structure. Center Street Annex Building, designed by the Boston firm of Shepley, Bulfinch, Richardson, and Abbott, in the brutalist, poured concrete style prevailing in the 1960s. This annex building to the west along West Center Street and rear of the original main gallery, extending to Park Avenue, opened in 1974. It was substantially altered in 1998 to 2001 by another firm of Cullman McKinnell and Wood architects, to provide a 4-story glass atrium, with a suspended staircase at the juncture between the older and newer buildings, with a new entrance lobby along Center Street. The new lobby, which also provides easier ground-level handicapped access along with enhanced security provisions for both collections and visitors, is also providing a cafe, an enlarged museum and gift store, and a reference library. The ancient, Byzantine, medieval, Ethiopian, and 19th-century European collections are housed in this building, with its large display walls and irregular corridors and galleries. Also here is the museum's famed art conservation laboratory, which is one of the oldest in the country. Hackum Urn House. This Greek Revival-style townhouse mansion, one of the most elaborate in the city, was designed by famed local architect John Rudolph Niency, and erected between 1848 and 1850 for Dr. John Hanson Thomas, was long regarded as the most elegant house along Mount Vernon Place or Washington Place. It sits on the southwest corner of the circle surrounding the Washington Monument, and was later owned by the families Jenks and Gladding. Considered in its premier landmark municipal location to be used for Baltimore City's official mayor's residence, the future King Edward VII. and General Lajos Kossuth, the then famous Hungarian freedom fighter, president of an early, brief Hungarian republic, veteran of the European revolutions of 1847 to 1848 and the father of modern Hungary. Since the mid-1980s, when the Thomas Jenks Gladding mansion was reacquired by the city under Mayor William Donald Schaefer, from the Gladding family with a donation by the mayor's loyal friend along with being a developer, industrialist and philanthropist, Willard Hackum, and transferred to the purposes of the Walters. Since additional renovations with the addition of a connecting gallery with domed skylight and corridor constructed through the top of the old rear carriage house, garage to the south end of the house, and across the east-west alley to the old 1909 main building's north side, reopened in 1991. The newly renamed Hackum Urn House has been devoted to the Walters' recently expanded holdings of Asian art. Select works from the WAM's collection. Movable ring from 664 to 322 BC. Green jasper and gold. The Walters Art Museum. 9th century Irish ring brooch. Ethiopian miniature of John the Evangelist. Gunda Gunda Gospel Book. 1540. Pendant with a lion. Flemish, Baroque. George Washington by Gilbert Stuart. The Sailor's Wedding, by Richard Catton Woodville. The Church at Aragni by Camille Pissarro. Iris Corsage Ornament by Tiffany & Company. Margot in Blue by Mary Cassatt. Rose Trellis Imperial Easter Egg by Peter Carl Fabre.